This is the Asian elephant today, known as Elephas maximus. But where does her evolution begin? And why did her close relative, Mammothus primigenius, the woolly mammoth, become extinct? We are going to explore the journey made by these great titans, and using the latest technology, we can investigate questions which have long eluded scientists, but are now more fully understood. Exactly how similar were the woolly mammoth to their living cousins, Elephas maximus, the Asian elephant, and what factors may have led to the extinction of mammoth while leaving the Asian elephant unscathed. The story starts some 30 to 34 million years ago with the evolution of Paleomastodon, the first ancestor of the Proboscidea order. Ancient fossils show that it bore close resemblance to its modern descendants. 5 to 7 million years ago, prime Elephas roamed the wooded areas of Central Africa, and was the oldest ancestor in the family Elephantidae. 3-meter tall mammal gave rise to the African elephant Loxodonta africanus, and the Asian elephant, whose taxonomy incorporates the traits of its ancestors down to its genus and species, Elephas maximus. Prime Elephas also gave rise to the now extinct Mammothus genus that included the woolly mammoth, who also shared similar taxonomy down to its genus and species, Mammothus primigenius. About 3 to 4 million years ago, descendants of the woolly mammoth, known as the southern mammoth, migrated into Eurasia, and Elephas maximus migrated into southern Asia. About 2.5 million years ago, dramatic shifts in the Earth's tectonic plates resulted in the Pleistocene, or Great Ice Age, which plunged over 40% of the northern hemisphere under ice and snow. Such extreme conditions forced the mammoths into adapting and evolving so that they could cope with their frozen world. Fossil records of the mammoth's molars show that the population changed species over time, from the temperate southern mammoth, who lived in a mostly savanna environment and grazed on trees and shrubs, into the steppe mammoth, who thrived in the harsher climes of the steppe, an area of grazing land below the ice sheets of Siberia and eastern Asia, where the main food source were harsh grasses. Gradually, the steppe mammoth moved into northeast Siberia, eventually evolving into the woolly mammoth some 750,000 years ago, where temperatures often fell to below -40 degrees Celsius. In an ironic twist of fate, more and more frozen carcasses of these ancient beasts are being released from their frozen tombs as a result of modern global warming. For the first time, scientists have been able to analyze complete specimens, allowing them to examine their morphological characteristics, or in other words, physical traits, as well as their DNA. Separated geographically from their cousins, the Asian elephant, many physical differences can be seen. Mammoths, both male and female, developed massive tusks, which could act like snowplows, allowing them to find hidden grasses. They also developed larger neck and shoulder musculature to help them carry the tusks, which in adults could reach up to 2 meters in length and weigh up to 120 kilograms each. Their tails and ears became smaller to conserve heat, and their body size shrunk from the massive height of their predecessors, which could be over 4 meters at the shoulder, to around 3 meters, the same size as the modern Asian elephant. A newly found preserved specimen showed the end of the mammoth's trunk to be very different from the Asian elephant of today. It had evolved to be able to delicately pick up tufts of new grass and shrubs, and because of the near-pristine nature of the preserved baby mammoth, scientists can for the first time scan her internal organs. These CT scans show remarkable adaptation to the Ice Age conditions. Her kidneys are much larger than you would expect in an animal of her size, showing that mammoth's organs had also adapted to the extremely dry conditions of the tundra. This unusually large organ can also be seen in the desert-adapted camels of today. Mysteries of the day-to-day life of the mammoths are unlocked in the analysis of the animal's tusks. Professor Dan Fisher of Michigan University is the leading expert in the mammoth tusk analysis. Unfortunately, the only way to reveal these secrets is by breaking a tusk open, polishing the separated half, and exposing them to ultraviolet light. Even without ultraviolet light, you can easily see alternating dark and light lines which represent winters and summers of the mammoth's life. But under the light, hundreds of microscopic growth lines are present, representing weeks and even individual days. By drilling out tiny amounts of ivory, Dr. Fisher can analyze chemical isotopes, letting us know how the mammoth lived. Oxygen isotopes from the water it drank reveal its territory, nitrogen isotopes reveal where it was getting its protein, and carbon isotopes reveal the types of plants it may have eaten, and thinner and thicker lines represent times of famine and times of plenty. It is also possible to see areas where sexually mature animals starve themselves in a time known as must. During this time, males are so consumed with the need to mate that they stop eating, which can be seen in the tusks as an area of decreased growth. This behavior is exactly the same as living elephants, so even though mammoths and Asian elephants were separated by great distances and endured very different diets and climates, their social behavior remained remarkably similar.
As well as morphological characteristics, we have for the first time been able to map the mammoth genome, which represents the complete genetic material that make up a cell. Traditionally, DNA analysis has been performed using ancient bone samples. That has been fraught with problems, as bone can be heavily contaminated with bacterial DNA, rendering it nearly useless.
Dr. Stephen Schuster from Pennsylvania State University has found that mitochondrial DNA, extracted from samples of the mammoth's hairs, is a much purer source of the host DNA, and its natural keratin serves as a protective shield against bacteria. Another fortunate byproduct of mitochondrial DNA is that it's passed from mother to offspring, which makes it useful for tracing the lineage of a species.
This is the first time that a complete genome of an extinct species has been achieved, and the results are astounding. We can now compare the genome of living elephants with those of the long-dead mammoth. Analysis of the mammoth genome reveals it differs from the Asian elephant by only 0.6%. That is about half the difference between humans and chimpanzees, which split from a common ancestor at around the same time.
The quality of mammoth hair is one of the reasons they were able to endure the horrendous cold of the winter. Unlike their cousin the Asian elephant, woolly mammoths had evolved a double coat of hair to protect them from the cold and the extreme weather. Shorter downy fur near the skin, which was kept greased by a thick layer of fat under the skin, kept them warm, while longer, coarser hair up to a meter in length protected against this rain, snow, and wind. But given that mammoths weren't in the habit of wearing shoes, how did they prevent their limbs from freezing?
This raises a problem for hemoglobin, which is the protein of red blood cells that takes on oxygen from the lungs and deposits it to the tissues. Unfortunately, this process is inefficient at low temperatures. So did the mammoth's hemoglobin act in a similar way to, say, other Arctic animals like the Arctic fox, which has evolved its hemoglobin gene, allowing the protein to release oxygen more easily at very low temperatures?
9 years ago, Dr. Kevin Campbell set out to answer this question. He figured that the hemoglobin system of living elephants would offer the best guide to how mammoth globin gene operates. Since Dr. Campbell had the decoded mammoth DNA, he could compare how their DNA code for making hemoglobin related to those of the Asian elephant. It turned out they differed in only 4 places.
Knowing the differences, Dr. Campbell and his team could synthesize copies of the mammoth's 2 globin genes by converting the Asian elephant's 2 globin genes at the 4 different sites. The mammoth genes were inserted into a host bacteria, which synthesized the 2 mammoth globin chains and assembled the chains into working hemoglobin molecules.
The resulting serum is as pure as if a sample were taken from a living mammoth, and at last allows us to ask whether its genetic changes had been shaped by natural selection to help mammoths survive in the cold. The answer is yes. The mammoth's hemoglobin released its oxygen into body tissue much more effectively at very low temperatures than did that of the Asian elephant. This meant that the mammoths were able to endure the freezing winters, letting their legs get very cold, but still maintaining body heat, and thereby conserving energy. So why did this highly adapted creature pass away into history, and the Asian elephant live on and thrive? Both were perfectly suited to their environment, and had prospered for millions of years. Yet by the end of the Ice Age, mammoth numbers began to dwindle, and approximately 10,000 years ago became extinct altogether. Theories regarding the mammoth's extinction are inconclusive, but evidence seems to suggest that 3 main reasons may be responsible.
Firstly, the end of the Ice Age heralded a great change in climate, resulting in torrential rain, changing the mammoth's natural habitat from grasslands to wooded forests. The mammoths, being such a large animal, would have found it very difficult to quickly adapt to their new food source, and numbers would have dwindled. Secondly, the heavy rains of this period would have ill-suited the mammoth's metabolism and hot, heavy coats. It is likely that these increased wet conditions would have affected their poorly equipped immune system, and this would have contributed to the mammoths contracting infectious diseases, thus adding to their declining numbers. Finally, man is known to have hunted the mammoth. Although it is unlikely that this alone would have led to the extinction of the species, it may have been the final straw in a list of unfortunate events the mammoth was unable to adapt to.
In contrast to the woolly mammoth, the Asian elephant cousins to the south were equally adapted to the climate of southern Asia, but unlike the mammoth, their environment did not change at the end of the Ice Age, ensuring that their diet and surroundings remained much the same throughout the eons. Even if they had been hunted by man, it would not have had enough of an impact to significantly reduce their number and force their extinction. That honor has been unfortunately bequeathed to modern man.